Hello there, and welcome again to my crazy hot studio, 30 degrees in Germany for a week. The latest news from Britain's politicians sounds more like a shambles than a birthday party. Ironically, on Boris Johnson's 59th birthday, the House of Commons in London voted on a committee's devastating report on the Partygate affair. And British Parliament thinks former Prime Minister Boris Johnson is a liar. Welcome to the club. The House of Commons voted overwhelmingly on Monday evening in London to accept the conclusions of a parliamentary committee on the statements made by the then Prime Minister in the Partygate affair. Only 7 MPs from Johnson's Conservative Party voted against the resolution, but 118 voted in favour. The majority of the 352-strong Tory faction abstained, including Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and most of the prominent cabinet members. A total of 354 MPs agreed, and the House of Commons has 650 seats. And this vote is considered symbolic and has little direct impact because Johnson had previously resigned his mandate. In the 106-page report released on Thursday, I talked about this in other videos, committee members concluded that Johnson lied to MPs about parties at his official residence during the coronavirus lockdown. They demanded that Johnson should lose the access to Parliament that former British heads of government are normally entitled to. Penny Mordaunt, leader of the House of Commons, announced at the beginning of the session that she wanted to vote for the report. However, she emphasized that all members of Parliament should make up their own minds. Sunak stayed away from the vote, which the opposition interpreted as a weakness. If the Prime Minister is not even able to show leadership when it comes to holding liars accountable, how can he expect the people of this country to trust him on anything else? That was said by Labour MP Thangnam Debonair. The opposition accused Prime Minister Sunak, who is blamed by Johnson's supporters for his end, of weak leadership. Because Sunak promised integrity when the push came to shove, he was too weak to even show up. And that was said by Liberal Democrat Deputy Leader Daisy Cooper. Sunak had not wanted to publicly commit to a decision and excused this by saying that he did not want to influence the vote. In its report, the mostly Conservative Parliamentary Committee came to the conclusion that the then Prime Minister had repeatedly lied to the lower house in the Partygate affair about forbidden celebrations during the corona pandemic. Johnson, who, as I said, turned 59 on the day of the debate, preempted the recommended 90-day suspension from Parliament by resigning from office. And some commentators were right. At that point, when he read it, it was still 20 days. With the vote, the lower house withdrew his parliamentary powers, which former MPs are actually entitled to. Johnson had criticized the report and insulted the committee members. According to polls, Johnson remains more popular than Sunak among the Conservative Party base, though. Many Tory members consider the populist to be a gifted campaigner without whom the party would have no chance in the general election planned for 2024. Due to the resignation of Johnson and 3 other Tories from the House of Commons, there will be by-elections in these constituencies in just a few weeks. Should the Conservatives lose their mandates, as polls suggest, the pressure on Sunak is likely to increase much further. Johnson has already made it clear that he does not consider his political career to be over. Winston Churchill only became Prime Minister at the age of 65, he said to have repeatedly said to confidants, according to information from the Sunday Times newspaper, referring to his great role model. There is speculation that Johnson could try to run in another constituency for 2024 against Sunak's wishes. If he were then re-elected to the House of Commons, he would also get his parliamentary powers back. But first of all, the ex-Prime Minister is likely to pester the incumbent head of government with loud statements from the sidelines. Shortly after leaving Parliament, the Conservative tabloid Daily Mail announced that Johnson would be writing as a columnist in the future. The politician is reportedly making £1 million a year for it. In his first post last Saturday, Johnson discussed the effects of a miracle drug for weight loss, which he says is also used by cabinet members. According to observers, Prime Minister Sunak is now hoping that the vote will put an end to the lengthy Partygate debate. And in view of the ailing NHS health service and the crisis surrounding rising living costs due to the high inflation and rising mortgage rates, numerous problems await the head of government still. And he wishes that that one is gone. But the consequences of the scandal-ridden Johnson years are likely to continue to haunt Sunak. Recently, there have been demands that he should subsequently reject 2 of Johnson's proposals for promotions. And a video released over the weekend shows staff members of Sean Bailey, the Conservative mayoral candidate for London, breaking corona rules at a lockdown party. Bailey is to become a member of the House of Lords at Johnson's request. A man featured in the video is set to receive a prestigious honorary degree. But Boris Johnson spoke again over the weekend, as I said, and on page 19 of the Daily Mail. His astonishingly neatly dressed silhouette was shown at the top. Next to it was written Boris in large letters, and that in blue, Tory blue, with Johnson printed below it in such small print as if it were of no interest at all. In the full-page text, the former Prime Minister pours out his thoughts on his obesity at the readers. It is about his nocturnal appetite for sausage and how he tried to curb his craving for ham sandwiches with medication. Although he did not feel well with this drug, it worked for colleagues in the cabinet, one of whom even lost so much weight that the chair at the cabinet table no longer tried to grab his hip when he got up. And that's why he, Boris, advocates that everyone should have the chance to use this drug in the future. Even if, to his amazement, he said, "What the hell? It's quite expensive." No joke. And Boris Johnson, until not so long ago Prime Minister of G7 Britain, is now this weekly columnist for the Daily Mail. The tabloid, which still has large circulation, has long since said goodbye to any form of serious journalism, is said to be paying him about £1 million a year for it. And Johnson told readers that he would only write about politics if absolutely necessary. Well, it never has to be, at least not according to some of his former colleagues in his former party, or still party. But Boris Johnson was once supposed to be the savior of the Tories, and in 2019 he won a historic 80-seat majority in the elections. He resigned from that post as MP last week, and I talked already about the debate in the House of Commons on Monday, and that he even had to surrender his pass to enter Parliament. And that is something that a former Prime Minister has never done before. The Privileges Committee reported last 5 hours before it was approved by a vote of 354 to 7. And the committee's recommendations are now implemented. And as expected, many Tories, including Sunak and so on, did not take part there, which is really a sign of weakness. But we all know that this committee had to find Johnson guilty after a year-long inquiry of willfully lying to Parliament during the scandal times. And he has such a history of lying, who would have expected something else? But even this new video of parties that now appeared, and I'm going to talk about this on my magazine channel as well, because people from that channel will be interested as well, will now bring back the police into the game. Although one question came in the comments under my video, the police are standing guard at Downing Street. Why didn't they get any of those parties? But since the report has been out, Johnson has been railing about witch hunts and stuff like this, and his supporters have complained that the punishment was disproportionate. Had Johnson not already resigned, he would now have been suspended for 90 days. And is this really disproportionate? Well, the British House of Commons follows strict rules, some of which are centuries old. And the most important is that MPs must tell the truth at all times in the House of Commons. If they make a mistake, they have the opportunity to correct the recording as soon as possible, because everything that is said in the House of Commons is recorded. And there are always several parliamentary staff in the press gallery who take turns in a rotating shift, and they are getting it all. MPs are therefore addressed with the title the honorable or the right honorable. Violations of that honor are subject to investigation and possible sanctions, all the more drastic when it concerns the Prime Minister, the one that should be an example to all of them. And being a role model, that's nothing Johnson ever claimed to be. But a few days ago, the Times published a letter from John Clawton on his letters to the editor page. He was a master's at Eton College from 1984 to 2001, a teacher, also had a tutor-like function in the British elite school. And he wrote that the school's perhaps most important task is to ensure that its students are protected from a sense of privilege, entitlement, and omniscience. And this uneasy, arrogant feeling produces graduates like Boris Johnson, and that could become a problem for the whole country. Sadly, Clawton concluded he failed at the task, and a lot of them with this background seem to be very entitled. But unfortunately, that spread over to a lot of other people in Great Britain when I'm reading the comments, for example, surrounding Brexit. This feeling of entitlement, I have no clue where this is coming from. Except from schools like that, I mean. Because there are countries that are economically stronger. And I don't feel entitled as a German, for example. We have quite a nice economy. There are always ups and downs, and after a crisis like this, a short recession is, who cares? That will go the other way again. But I don't feel entitled when I go to other countries. When I go to other countries, like I did when I moved to the UK that time, I adapt to that country, and at least I try. But I don't feel entitled because I come from a certain country and the might of a certain country. And I've been to countries that are much poorer than Germany, and I didn't feel entitled. I was happy to meet the people there, getting to know their customs. Like a friend from Finland at the moment is visiting Germany, and he's experiencing a lot of not German but Bavarian customs at the moment. There is quite a difference because despite everyone on the globe thinking that we all the time are wearing lederhosen, that's mostly the Bavarians and the Austrians. But nevertheless, that is something you want to experience other countries. You don't go there and feel like, I sometimes have the feeling a lot of Britons that never left their country, by the way, that's the funniest part of it, feel like they are the lords of colonial times when they enter another country or when they deal with another country. But that is not the fact. But nevertheless, Boris Johnson is gone now, and he's going to pester Sunak from especially with the help of the newspaper in between. I'm quite sure about this. And he will be back in 2024 if not something really bad happens in the meantime. And it must be to get rid of Boris Johnson, he probably has to kill someone not to be able to come back. That's the feeling you have, the same like with Donald Trump. You see how many trials he has, how many sentences he has. He's still running for president. And they didn't call, or Trump didn't call Boris with no reason as the British Trump, because there's a lot of truth for once in what Trump said at that point. And if you're interested in other videos, for example, the clarification I gave with commenting on a lot of comments from my ECJ video, that was interesting for many people. There's another video right here in the end screen, and I'll see you there. I'll be back.